going to do that today anyway. If you are out there and you are listening, we want you to be very much a part of this program. We want you to give us a call on 020-737-1619 and have your say. Take this music. We'll be coming your way very shortly. Well, this morning, our guest for the topic of the discussion, racism, where is it? Where is it gone? That's the title of our topic this morning. And our guest this morning is Dr. Francio Guadelope. He's an assistant professor of anthropology at the University of Amsterdam. And he was our guest last year. It turns out that it's about a year ago you were last year, December 19th, exactly. Today's the 19th, so December 19th you were here last year, 2011.
Ah, wow, yeah.
So amazing, huh? How time flies. It seems like yesterday. Yeah. Well, I'd like to say hello to our listeners, please.
Good morning, listeners.
Yeah. I would like to say by way of introduction that most people wonder whether racism has finally disappeared from society or is still much alive. Some believe it's still here and others not. But this is what one person had to say on the matter. He said, I'm quoting among others, it says, explicit talk about racial differences is conspicuously absent in the public debate in the Netherlands. Hierarchical and discriminatory statements and actions are phrased in the tonality of culture. Islam and the ethnic specificities of newcomers hailing from the global south are emphasized. This is a very academic quote here, and so I'm going to have the source break it down for us. Anyhow, on this note, I would like to welcome you to the show. I'd like us to know that discrimination in Europe is very common, despite the widespread legal protection. According to a research with respondents from 25 European countries, the most common form of discrimination is on the basis of ethnic origin, disability, or sexual orientation, albeit age, gender, and beliefs, including religious beliefs. Now, we're going to be looking at this topic, and we're going to be examining the reality of racism being still present in our society or not. Now, Dr. Francio, how much racism do you believe is present in the Dutch society today?
Well, good morning. One has to be quite smart with these things. I think on the one hand, we have to be able to admit that the older form of racism seemingly has disappeared. No one nowadays calls themselves a racist. I mean, 50, 60 years ago, someone would say, I'm proud to be a racist. I believe in races. Nowadays, hardly anyone says so. That does not mean that racism has disappeared. It simply means that people do not speak the language of biological difference anymore. Nowadays, they speak the language of cultural difference. And if you wish to have a kind of, let's say, a definition for racism in order to talk about it, you can say that racism is actually a denial of difference based upon miscommunication. Some people believe racism is about difference, but racism is not about difference. Racism is actually about the denial of difference. And you deny difference by actually not looking at the individual, but you look at groups. And you construct groups, and then you say, based upon this type of pseudo-difference, I'm going to treat you differently.
Why do you think people are racist in their behavior, in their attitude? Why do you think people are that way?
I think that you have to make differences in levels. Politically, of course, racism worked and still works to actually legitimize power. Power and inequalities, then you can say, of course, we have a right to have more power because we are superior to the others or the others are inferior to us. Racism sometimes on the individual level works actually based upon anxiety. So people are anxious about the other, they're sometimes afraid, and being afraid of difference that they meet, the difference of another individual, then they will quickly actually jump to a box and say, oh yeah, I know this is the black box. Nowadays in cultural terms, this is the Islamic box, this is the Ghanaian box. But we all know that ethnicity and what was called biological race, they were like seamy sides of the same coin. So sometimes you could play ethnicity and say, well, it's actually deep down essentially that that person is culturally different. Culture, we know, is something that people can obtain. You can learn culture. But the moment you treat culture as though it's essential, that's the moment you're actually in racism.
How do you mean treating culture as essential?
The moment you say, actually, for instance, that kids that grew up here, let's say a Ghanaian background, if you say, well, actually they don't belong here, they actually belong in Ghana, then you're actually into racism, because racism sometimes is based upon a notion of ethnic belonging in which you cannot see that people are hybrid, people are mixtures. So the kids that grew up here, whether their parents are from Ghana, or their parents are from the Antilles, or their parents are from Suriname, or Turkey, or Morocco, they are Dutch citizens as well, and should be treated as Dutch citizens.
But the fact is that if you look, throughout the history of humanity, people have the, let's say, the tendency to move about. People are mobile anyway. People travel from place to place, and they settle there. So why can't people just get used to the fact that the world or the earth belongs to everybody, and that you have a right to go wherever you want to go? But of course, before you move into territory, you must get the permission of whoever is maybe in charge or ruling that place to get in. But we gotta accept the fact that we have the right, or we have the freedom to live anywhere on earth we choose to. And why can't other people accept that?
Well, there's many reasons why people feel they cannot accept it. Part of it is based upon misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation that says people come here because they actually want to abuse the system. That's misinformation. People do not easily move about, especially if they have it good in their countries where they have been living before. When people move about, and we always know that people who move actually to other societies are people who want to actually better themselves. If we can push that type of information, then people might not be so afraid. And I think oftentimes politicians and other types of factions push misinformation about people. So I think that's necessary. Yeah.
So they are kind of playing on the minds of others in order to gain some sort of political advantage, so to speak.
Exactly.
So they actually fuel the flame of racism.
The flame of racism is fueled in order not to look seriously at the questions which we should look at, the questions of inequality, the questions of unequal trade worldwide, the long remnants of colonialism, those traces that still remain. If we were to actually have equal trade, then many people would not be moving about across the globe. If we would hold certain governments more accountable, people would not be moving about through the globe. If we would hold our own government accountable and say, listen, I want to actually live in a country in which you actually treat other countries equally and equitable. I want to live in a country in which there is forms of law in which when people enter, they get actually equal opportunities to advance. I want to live in a country in which the rich are taxed in proportion
to what they're making.
Those types of things, and those types of things are never spoken about. So then we speak about, let's blame a scapegoat for certain things that are going wrong. I think that is of consequence. And racism is the easiest thing. Racism in the tonality of culture nowadays is the easiest thing to not talk about the issues that we should talk about.
Well, this is. If you are listening out there and you want to give an input, please give us a call on 020-737-1619. If you have something you want to share on this topic of racism, do you believe it's there? Do you believe it's affected you in some way? Do you believe something should be done about it? Give us a call on 020-737-1619. Now, do you think that lip service is being paid to eliminating racism instead of resources being actually committed to eliminating it?
I think what we need, and I think we need far more resources. I think what is necessary is, for instance, in education, primary school, secondary school, I think there actually people should get more information about people coming in here. I think we should actually learn about each other. And therefore I say racism is a denial of difference, because it actually does not talk about the difference of people coming in here. The moment you actually treat difference seriously is the moment you will ask the person, well, tell me about yourself. Who are you? What do you actually need? Those are the things that are of consequence. Where do you come from? But the moment you just simply drop a box and say, this is the black box, I know black people. This is the white box, I know white people.
Yes.
This is the African box, I know African people. That's the moment actually you're not into difference, but you're denying it and you're just simply using old stale categories. So I think we need to really tackle it, and we cannot act as though this society does not have racism. If all of Europe is still struggling with racism, if the globe is still struggling with racism, how can we then say this society doesn't have any racism at all?
They have it.
But realistically speaking, is this something, can we really eliminate racism? I'm wondering, can you answer the question? Can we actually eliminate racism?
Well, we know actually that racism emerged in the 19th century. It emerged at the moment, really, when slavery was at its demise.
Okay.
In order to legitimize, because people are getting free at that moment, people who actually, whose ancestors came from Africa and elsewhere. In order to legitimize still the inequality, scientists, pseudoscientists at that moment said, we know that there are human races. We all know, later on in the 40s, that that was impossible, because if there are human races, those people would not be able to mix. The moment they can mix, and they can continuously mix, that means you only have one human race. If we constructed this thing in the 19th century, then we can deconstruct it. We can change it. But we can only change it if all of us actually work towards changing that. What we have done at the university is the 12th of December we're holding a public meeting. We're inviting Paul Gilroy of the London School of Economics to actually come and speak to us so we can debate how are we going to actually construct an anti-racist manifesto for the 21st century. A Dutch anti-racist manifesto for the 21st century, in which we will get cultural institutions involved, the educational institutions involved, other types of civil society, in order to really tackle this thing and not to say, well, we can't get rid of it. That's a kind of defeatism, which actually is, in a certain extent, to a certain extent, really terribly, if I say so, spitting on the ancestors of people who fought during slavery and spitting on the people who nowadays are still facing racism. We cannot say to those people, well, we can't get rid of it. We have to say we're going to actually do our best together with them to actually get rid of this plague.
It is a plague, yes.
Awesome.
It's true.
Let me take, I wanted to take this one and then we take a short break. Now, I wanted to explain the quote which I gave earlier by Paul. I don't know whether it was from Dr. Paul Gilroy or you quoted that. It's an explicit talk about racial differences is conspicuously absent in the public debate in the Netherlands. Hierarchical and discriminatory statements and actions are phrased in the tonality of culture, Islam, and ethnic specifications of newcomers.
Newcomers are
One second, let me just finish Islam and the ethnic specifications of newcomers hailing from the global south are emphasized. Let me take this call. Hello. Yes, sir. He's a gentleman, actually. He only has this nice, soft voice. Yeah.
Increase the volume.
Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Right. Did you get a question?
No, could he please rephrase the question? I'm sorry.
Well, he's saying that racism, normally when we look at it in terms of color differences, between people. But it says even, but and in fact, even it's with us, at home, we can feel and experience racism even right in our homes, something like that. He said. What do you have? What's the reaction on that?
Well, of course, if you learn something outside, if you learn it in school, if you learn it in advertisements, if you learn it through music, through videos, etc., you will bring these things into your home.
Yeah.
I think that it is consequential to make sure that when you're in your home that you learn to treat each other as individuals, that you break racism in your household. And you only break it in your household by actually really talking to one another. Talking to one another and treating each other with respect. And respect simply means actually taking the other into account.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually looking at yourself. Perhaps the wisest thing is not to say they are racist and non-racist, but perhaps the wisest thing is to say all of us must actually undo ourselves of racism. We must learn to actually really respect difference and really see difference and really speak to the other, because every individual is an individual with a specific story. If we can do so, then we're seeing difference.
I think let me put it this way. Let me just coin this. I think there's positive racism and negative racism. Now, the word racism, of course, speaks of negatively looking down somebody, trying to put somebody down above, and put somebody above the other. Dehumanize another person and stuff like that, but why I made that statement, I said positive racism and negative, is that we cannot deny the fact that we are humanity, but at the same time there are differences in us. Some are tall, some are short, some are light, some are dark, some have long hair, some have short hair. Now all these are diversities that we find among ourselves, and it makes life beautiful and colorful. We need to celebrate that. But any kind of discrimination which is negative and which actually puts people down and suppresses them and makes them to be less than others, that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're fighting, isn't it? That should not be tolerated,
Yes.
And I believe that's what the fight against racism is all about.
For sure. I mean, we all can celebrate diversity, definitely. But when I meet a person and that person is dark-skinned like myself, all that tells me is the person is dark-skinned like myself. It doesn't tell me anything else about the person. Everything else I actually attribute to that person, I'm attributing without actually communicating with that person. So the first thing I see is the person's skin color. That's something I see, and I say, we have the same skin color. Then the second thing must be, so tell me, who are you? What are your interests? What are you doing? What actually are the things that you wish to achieve? What are the issues at hand? So diversity I have no issue with. Of course we see certain things. But seeing them does not necessarily entail that I know you.
Exactly.
I guess that's the cardinal difference.
Okay. Now, if you could go back to the question I was asking you before the call came, to break down that quote which I stated earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it from you or from Professor Gilroy?
Well, it's from me and a couple of other students at the university that I asked, let's try and write about this and think about how we can actually promote this public day on the 12th of December. And all your listeners are welcome to come.
Yes.
It will be at the Compagnie Theater, which is in the center of Amsterdam. I'm going to actually furnish more information so that you can put it on your website, and you are welcome as well. It actually means that we do not talk about racism here. We don't talk about discriminating people based upon biological difference. That's something we don't do anymore. I guess we learned our lessons after World War II.
Yeah.
The whole anti-Semitism, the whole Holocaust, but also the struggle for independence of African and Asian countries.
Yeah.
We learned our lesson. Nowadays what you see is that we say, but essentially those people are different, and then we say, but why are they different essentially? Then we say, it's because it's their culture. Culture becomes almost like how race used to be,
Yeah.
something in their bodies.
Yeah.
Then we say, oh, it's their religion. And religion becomes something almost inside their bodies. We don't ask someone who actually practices Islam, tell me what kind of Islam you practice. Because me seeing someone dressed quote-unquote Islamically with a headscarf or something, that only tells me the person is wearing a headscarf. It doesn't tell me how the person practices their religion.
Yes.
It might be that the person is wearing it just simply because of fashion.
Yeah.
It might be that the person never goes
Exactly.
to the mosque.
Yes, it's
It
true.
might be that the person is Shiite or Sunni, or the person is Alawite. All these things I don't know, but I just say Islam. And I think that there is our problem.
Yeah.
We have to start to really talk to each other.
The prejudice rises there and then once you see the person without having spoken to the person, you know who that person really is, then the prejudice immediately comes up.
Exactly.
So
The box comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I put you in the box.
exactly,
I
exactly.
deny difference. It seems like I'm
So-
accepting difference, but
But
I
what do you
deny.
think is a solution to something like that? Because somebody may not know how to deal with that sort of perception. So if you meet somebody, let's say in let's say Islamic attire, let's suppose,
Yeah.
in order to avoid becoming prejudiced,
Yeah.
how would you go about it? How should you reason? How should you think?
I think
Can
if
you go through that scenario for us?
Yeah. If you recognize that you have a whole lot of preconceived notions, I'd like to call them that, preconceived notions about, for instance, Islam. You recognize you have those.
Yeah.
Then I would say the moment you meet someone, you would actually be open enough to say, when I see you,
Yeah.
all these ideas come to mind. I put them on the table.
Yeah.
The ideas come to mind of fundamentalism, of not well integrated, etc., etc. And then you say, I have these ideas, but I don't know you. But I'm putting them on the table. Let's talk now. Then that person has the opportunity to say, well, all these preconceived notions you have of me, they are wrong, because this is who I am. So sometimes it's best to actually admit that we have these preconceived notions. Don't keep them in the back of your mind. Put them on the table and then have a conversation about them.
But realistically speaking, when you're on the street, you may not have the time to have that sort of interaction with a person. You may not have that much time even. So how can someone process this within him or herself and avoid, carrying prejudice in his or her heart?
Realistically speaking, what you then do, the person who experiences this, if I go into a bus, for instance, and I carry these dreadlocks, and someone thinks, oh, do you have a card? Then I can actually say, something, is it? And I'm going to ask the person. I've often experienced that people actually treat me differently because of my dreadlocks. Is this the reason that you're asking me if I have a card?
A card for what?
Because I don't, a card for the bus. I don't know if you are thinking that way.
That's what you mean.
But that's why I'm going to ask you, because I've experienced a lot of this. Is this the reason why you're asking me for my card explicitly and not asking someone else?
Oh.
Then that person can say, no, that's not the reason I'm asking you. Then I can say, okay, then I hope that when someone else comes in, you will actually show that you will not only be looking at those people that have dreadlocks, but actually look indiscriminately. Then I'm sure that you're saying what you mean.
Wow.
But that's the way you do this thing.
I have a question.
Okay, you have a discussion here, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Recently, I was following a course in this university, and I was the only black student there. And unfortunately, the other students started just 2 days before I arrived. And then we were supposed to be 12 students. And then when I came in, I saw that they quickly put up an attitude and they refused to make provision for me. There was no seat. And then this lecturer gave me his seat the first day. And then the second day, I expected that they would make provision for me to have a seat. Now I came in and everybody was just looking. There were some students who have not yet arrived, but they had already used their books and everything, their bags, to colonize the whole seat. So I stood and I was expecting this lecturer to say something like, "Hi, Helen, come here and sit." But he also didn't want to surrender his seat for me. And then I asked him, "Where do I have to sit? And am I not supposed to be part of this course?" And then he said, yeah. I said, "Are you not expecting me in this course?" He said, yeah, you are supposed to be here. I said, "But where am I supposed to sit?" So he said, "I don't know." Then I went and removed the bag of one of the students. I said, "Who is here?" He said, she has not yet come. I said, "Okay, what about this other one?" He said, "He has not yet come." I said, "Well, you don't colonize seat in a higher institution." I said, this is childish. I believe all of us are graduates here. And then why would you colonize seat for somebody who have not yet come? I said, "I'm going to sit here." So immediately I said that. Then one of the boys came up while the course was going on, and he asked a strange question. He said, "Excuse me, what is the consequence of really shooting and killing?" He was asking, what is the consequence? And then the lecturer said, if you shoot, if you target and you get it totally, then it's 4 years. But if you miss the target, then you will stay longer.
Yeah.
So I began to, so throughout the time I was in this lecture, I was just wondering, what does this really mean? And then we had a short break, and then I quickly called my husband. I said, "Could you imagine this sort of discussion going on here?" And then after that particular course, I said to the lady who colonized, and she was very. She was not happy anymore because I sat next to her. She was so, and then I never knew that she also wanted to see the lecturer. And then she was actually telling the lecturer she doesn't think I belong here. And then because the lecturer told me, "Can you stay outside? Because I want to have discussion with this other student. When I finish with her, then I can speak with you." But I heard her speaking. Then I said, "No, I just had to come in." So I said, "Excuse me, you are making a report about me, and I want to make a report about you." I said, "You are not acting mature. And you, the lecturer," I said, "You're supposed to be a lecturer, and you're supposed to bring calmness when you see things like this happening. I am so disgusted that you can act in this manner. I would like to go to the higher authority." So he said, "Oh, I have not seen this sort of behavior. I think there's a cultural difference here." I said, "Please don't speak about cultural difference. We are talking about an ethics that is not allowed." I said, "You're supposed to be mature, and you're supposed to make provision for me for this course. I paid for this course, and why would I be isolated?" After we brought it to the school authority, you know what? I was called while I've left and I came back home. They called me. They said, "Oh, we know the other students, we feel you cannot really cope up now because we didn't like the way they treated you. So please, would you just take off, and then we're going to start you on the next section of courses." That means stay at home. Can you imagine that? And then I didn't go well in my soul. I told my husband, "This is racism playing out." My husband told me, no. I said, "No, it is." Because why would I be the one to stay at home? The one that is targeting to shoot, they didn't say stay at home. And then it's me. Why would I be the one to stay at home? Why? And then I wrote something to clarify myself to the lecturer. I said, "I am a little bit disgusted. Why is it that you could not make provision? And why didn't you ask for seat to be brought for me? Why? Where did you expect me to sit?" He never responded to me till now. He never responded to me. So, and then I waited for them for a couple of months. They never wrote me. They never told me. So I wrote to the whole school authority. They still didn't respond. Any one of them never responded. And then I copied my mails to different quarters. And then I said, "Okay, now we gave them extra 3 weeks again." Then I picked up phone and I called and I got the dean of the school. He said, "You know what? why was I treated this way? Oh, because we thought you are taking it easy, because we said we're going to put you up again by January. We thought you are taking it easy. So please, I said, no. And why didn't you respond back to me? All the mails. Oh, actually, okay, can we put that behind, please? Because I heard that certain things happen in the lecture room. And this. So, I was so put off. Until now, I'm looking for a way to deal with this, because I said, I don't know what to call this. And then I said, could I call this racism? And then I asked her. I said, he said, oh, no. I said, I'm being judged because of my skin, because immediately I came in, they had attitude. They had attitude. And this was happening among those who are educated. Can you think about this?
It's a classical example. So, can you comment on this? This is a refined racism, perhaps. Discrimination. Well, give us your
in the university setting.
Yeah, give us your take on that.
No, taken. I mean, I think that this
Does
happens.
that happen with this? I mean, this kind of subtle.
Well, I've heard about this often, so I do believe it happens a whole lot, and I think it has to be tackled. I think that the lecturer was wrong.
Yeah, it was weak. In fact, I think it was
weak and wrong, both weak and wrong. He was weak because he or she did not actually call.
Say he, yes. Yes.
He did not call the rest of the class to order.
Yeah.
That's never introduced me to them.
Exactly. That's weakness,
yes.
one.
Yeah.
He was wrong for the second reason, because actually people should learn that everyone who is paying for a course has a right to be there, should be treated equally. And if they don't like it, then they should have been the ones who actually should have started in February. Because when you do that,
yes,
then you teach someone, you teach the rest of them,
yes,
in this society, this is not the way we're going to behave with one another.
Yes.
But you're not going to actually say, you go home and let's just assuage and keep the thing all right so that the rest can feel better.
Yeah.
No, that's wrong. It's always wrong to do it that way. So I think that he was wrong. I think that the school should actually have given you an apology and said,
yes,
no, that's not the way we're going to do it. Our school stands for actually having people who later on will be partially running this society, and those people must learn
yes,
to actually behave ethically. This is not a question of culture. Sometimes we mistake culture for ethics.
Yes.
Ethics is just simply that you treat the other person humanely.
Yes.
You treat the person with respect.
Well, is there, take the last question before we take a short break. Is there a place where people, I suppose there is a commission or whatever to handle complaints about discrimination. We'll talk about that when we return. Well, if you have been following the discussion, you are most welcome to throw in a question or remark. Call us on 0207 371619. We'll be on a short break, and you're most welcome to throw in that call.